Okay, so last night I probably had the biggest disaster I've had with this pellet heater cum oil burner. I was cranking it up more and more and more, spraying lots of degreaser down here. And it was going on fine, I started to get a bit of heat out of it. Then oil started coming out from underneath here. Then it was almost on fire. Then it started to make noises like it was going to detonate. It was a whoomp, whoomp, whoomp. This was getting quite concerning. The whole bottom of it was on fire, so I switched it off at the power point and it started smoking. Well, I'll say vaporising because it was white oil smoke, and it filled the whole shed. It went on for about 30 minutes. And I opened the door again and it was still burning on the inside after 30 minutes with no fan, so I had to fill it with baking soda. And during the process of this, it also developed an internal short circuit and took out the RCD. Even though it was switched off, the neutral is actually shorted to the earth. I tested it with a meter. So yeah, it may be rest in peace for this, but I'm going to drag it out and clean up the oil as best as I can. See if I can replace some of the wiring, and then I'm going to make a new pan that doesn't let oil drip into the bottom, because that was obviously a stupid idea. And I think the problem has been, when I want to increase the amount of fuel going in, if it doesn't burn immediately, it just goes straight through. All that oil ends up in the bottom, which then catches fire once it gets really hot, which throws out lots of heat, but also causes the seal on the front of the door to burn out. The whole heater to basically catch on fire. You can see that arcade key that I put in there, that's actually melted and dripped down there. There's no seal left, it would seem, on the door anymore, so let's see what I can do. Alright, so I figured out why this all happened. The arcade lock had lost its tension and allowed air to get in through the seal into there, which then caused quite a lot of heat in here, because there was forced air into this, which, because it had caught fire, then caused the seal. It's a bit hard to see, but there was just like a silicon seal in the bottom of this. It's only meant to hold ash, and it burnt that. You can see in the bottom. I don't want to get. You can see the orange in there. That actually burned away. That allowed the oil to drip in the bottom of there, out and also out the front, and then catch fire inside the heater, and that's where all the disaster started to occur. So I've got to try and clean that all up, reseal it, and then hopefully fix that wiring. So here's the situation underneath and at the back of the heater after I slid it out. As you can see, this was on its way to being totally disastrous. I'm lucky I didn't end up with a more severe fire like last time. I have to really make sure the oil cannot leave the combustion pot if I ever use this for oil again. Okay, so in here we can see why the RCD tripped. We've got a mess. That looks like some sort of pressure switch. I'm not entirely sure what it's there for, but I'm pretty sure it's redundant. Some safety feature that isn't going to help me anymore. I've also lost the capacitor, motor start capacitor. It's a bit of a worry. Yeah, so I'm going to have to patch that wiring up, remove that pressure switch. Yeah, that's pretty scary how hot it got in there. Not good. Obviously not meant to have fires in the bottom half of the heater. Here we go, wiring repaired. Well, all of it except for the auger control. Well, I don't have the pressure switch for the auger because it was just in series with it, and the other wires are a bit charged, so I was going to tape those up out of the way and just go without the auger because I'm definitely not using it for the moment. I've used actual crimps rather than solder. That should be pretty obvious as to why I've done that. So this capacitor wouldn't actually start the motor even though it measured okay. I didn't have another one of those caps and I couldn't be bothered getting one, so I've just used these X2 caps. It's a bit dodgy, but they're running it just fine. I'll just go with that. Alright, so I redid the seal around the bottom for this ashtray. I just super glued on like a standard door sill from Bunnings. I'm surprised it worked, but it did. So here's my new burn tray setup. This is just like a loaf tin from Coles for bread. I had to cut a fair bit out of the back of it. I didn't really want to do that, but it had to fit underneath here. Realistically, that's a fair. I should be able to see through the glass if that's starting to fill up, and know to cut it back, and it should catch fire in there rather than in the bottom of the heater. So I reckon that's going to work. Then I've just got this post cap. We'll sit there like that. I just think it might burn better. Really don't know. So give it a bit of a shot now. Okay, so this is completely different to the other setup. Now that the plate in there is hot enough to flash that oil, it's starting to burn fairly well. I don't know where those flames are sucking up to, but it must be just sort of cycling around. But what's really good is I can see exactly how much oil is in there. I couldn't do that before, and it was just heaps and heaps and heaps of it ending up in the bottom. So I'm not sure how this is going to go heat-wise, but it's definitely a lot safer. So I sat a valve spring in the cup to help atomise the fuel a bit better. I played around with the positioning a bit, but most of all I just let it get a lot hotter. Now it's cranking. Probably needs a little bit of modification so it doesn't vortex to the one side like that, but it's throwing out a lot of heat. It's the most fuel I've ever been able to get it to burn that clean, so that's pretty interesting. Quite the stream of oil going in there, but it's burning. I checked the chimney, it's burning pretty clean. That's throwing out a hell of a lot of heat. I suppose the bonus is I can see the fuel level in that container. It's actually starting to get up a little bit, so I'm going to crank it down a bit, but I haven't seen any in the overflow container, so this is a lot more manageable than it was before, and hopefully I won't have to go through the hell I did last time. Alright, so even though I got this going fairly well after the last disaster, I'm not very happy with the way the fire tends to burn just up this side of the firebox. It seems to overheat the fan. Like there's a sensor that makes the fan go full bore that's on that side. It seems to come on a bit early too, so I'm going to try and get the fire to come up the middle. This was the old burn pot. It was just like a bearing install tool, sleeve repair kit install tool with some overflow holes drilled and a pipe cap. Now I've come up with something a bit more elaborate. This is a piece of 3-inch exhaust tubing with a cap welded on the bottom, RHS channel on the side that fits over the air intake inside the heater. Comes in through a cutout there, and it comes to a spiral. I left that piece of metal there to help with the spiraling. Has an intake for the oil feed and also an overflow. So theoretically that should create a nice vortex in there, so I might as well fire it up and see how it's going to go. That's doing exactly what I want it to do. It's I can't really do much with the exposure, but yeah, it's spiralling perfectly. It's only on degreaser, but I can't see why that's not going to work for oil. It's absolutely spot on what I wanted. Can't ask for much better than that. Alright, still wasn't happy. I removed the swirly piece from inside there, and I made up this copper rod with a copper base on it. That's hopefully to help it start, because it tends to lose heat, or this doesn't heat up very quickly, and I think the rush of air from in here cools it down too much. So hopefully with this copper sticking up into the flame a bit, it'll conduct some heat back down into the oil and help it atomise. Right, there it is burning, nice happy medium. You can burn it hotter than that, but it goes into thermal overload, which it's actually in at the moment. and the blower fan has to just go at full noise until it cools down. So hasn't quite got the cool spiral it had with the other setup, but barely used any degreaser to light it, and it seems to be a lot more stable when I reduce the fuel down and then come back up again. So I'm going to call that a win.